Hey guys, ever wonder what it's like to be an international model, travel for the very first time alone to a country that you don't speak their language? In this video, I am going to talk about my first contract abroad, traveling alone, meeting my roommates, castings, and just life in Istanbul. This was in March of 2013 when I found out that I was going to be signed. And so I was going to be leaving in May of 2013. I was very, very excited. I was set. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do when I set out to model, and I am going. But I had a lot of people asking me, oh my gosh, you're going to Istanbul? Have you seen the movie Taken? That didn't scare me. I knew that I was, 26 years old and I was smart enough with my surroundings and I would be fine. But it doesn't mean that I wasn't nervous, for sure. I was traveling alone, supposedly gonna be picked up, supposedly, by somebody in a van. Were they gonna pick me up? Am I gonna be stranded? Is this legit? I'm gonna have roommates. How many? Are we gonna be able to communicate? They're not gonna speak my language. I'm definitely not gonna know their language. They're gonna be nice. They can be catty. So I had no idea what to expect. First thing I needed to do was drop off my car and my dog in Texas. I put everything in storage that I owned in California, and I had a dog, Bailey, a little brown Boston Terrier that needed taken care of. I drove my black Honda Accord all the way across the US to Texas. Now, here's another shout out for David Murata. He was one of the photographers I met, I told you guys, who became a father figure. We had done a lot of shoots together and had some amazing images and absolutely loved working together. And he helped me get signed at, 2 different agencies. So he helped me fix my car, or just take a look at it just to make sure that it was going to make the drive. My car was running great. I think I had 200,000 miles on it or something crazy, 150. And so he checked everything out for me and I was off to Texas. So I drove, I think it's a 22-hour drive. I drove all the way with Bailey, made it to Texas, dropped Bailey off. Thank you so much to everybody who helped take care of my little guy. I get to Texas and I literally was giving this everything I had. I was like, let's do this. If you're ever gonna do it, it's now. And then I flew to Istanbul. Choosing Istanbul. Out of all of the countries, Istanbul, my agency told me that typically girls start at first. So, I listened to their advice and I chose Istanbul. In Istanbul, I was told that blondes were great, and based on my body type and my blonde hair, that Istanbul would be the best fit to start first, to get that experience under my belt of traveling internationally before going to places like Milan. Next was contracts. How does this work? So a lot of people have asked, how does that work when you're living abroad? Do you have to pay for your way? Do you have to pay for your ticket or your room and board? So the great thing is with international contracts like this is that you typically are paying back your room and board first within the contract. So once you book some gigs, you're not making that money because you're first paying back your room and board. Once you, reach your room and board, you've paid that back. And if you're continuing to book gigs, then that's when you start making that money. So something that's very important that I heard that other girls had in their contract, which I made sure in my future contracts especially not to have, was they had a contract where no matter if they booked gigs or not, they had to owe money at the end. So essentially, if you didn't book enough gigs to pay back your room and board, some girls had to actually owe money to the agency. So none of my contracts had this, and I was fully aware of that. My first contract, my agency took care of. The second contract, I had, a little knowledge about that. And so I made sure in my second contract, no matter if I booked enough gigs to pay my room and board back, I would still be guaranteed a certain amount of money. And this I was going to use to keep traveling to the next country. The next thing is traveling and arriving. So obviously I'm going to Istanbul. This is pretty nerve-wracking. I've never been. It's a different language. When I get there, I'm supposed to have a driver pick me up. Are they really gonna pick me up? Are they gonna take me somewhere else? Very exciting, but it was also very nerve-wracking. So I got a ticket booked, a very long flight, maybe 20 hours or something crazy. The cheapest flight was booked for me, and that had a 10-hour layover in Amsterdam. So this was really exciting, and this is the first time I found out that you can get a tour of the city in those very long layovers in the airport. So I definitely booked this at a 10-hour layover. So I got to go on the boat ride around the city, and we went to a little cafe, and I met some people, and this was really, really amazing. So I was, super excited that I was on my way to Istanbul, but I was also able to see Amsterdam, another city. So that was super exciting. So once I arrived at Istanbul, I believe I arrived pretty late at night. And so of course, here's the part where I'm like, okay, supposed to have a driver pick me up. Number one, is this gonna happen? Number two, where are they gonna take me? Are they actually gonna take me to the model house? Or am I gonna be abducted or taken somewhere else? I had friends when I had booked this to go to Istanbul make jokes of like, oh my gosh, you're going to Istanbul. Have you ever seen the movie Taken? And I was like, yes, I've seen the movie Taken. Just be aware of your surroundings. But fast forward, the driver did pick me up. He was there, yay! I don't remember if he was holding a sign or not, but his name was Erkan. And he picked me up, and we're driving to the villa in Bebek. And so it was really funny because I didn't realize until probably several years later, and I still think about this to this day, is he was driving what I thought was very, very fast. But I didn't realize at the time that the van he was driving was in kilometers and not miles. So here he was going like 130 kilometers or 120 kilometers, and I was like, oh my god, this guy's going so fast, I'm gonna do, I was like so nervous. I'm in a new country, barely know this guy, still don't know if he's taking me to the right place yet, but he's speeding around. Realized I don't know if it was years or whatever, but realized later that it was not in miles. He was not really going that fast. So I arrived to the villa, and Erkan showed me my room. And mind you, all the girls are sleeping, so I quietly sneak into my room. He shows me which bunk bed is mine, and yes, bunk beds. So the villa was a model house, right? So I think it was 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms. One of them was being used downstairs for the main office, for our booking agent, and then all the other rooms had bunk beds in there, or a couple of beds for all of us girls to room. I'm sneaking in at midnight, and he points to the top bunk. He's like, that's your bunk. And he points to the wall, I think had like a Wi-Fi thing on there. This is what time we're leaving tomorrow morning. Mind you, I'm speaking because I'm speaking to you guys, but he was not. He was like, good night. Okay. So I crawl into my bed, I connect to the Wi-Fi, and I go to sleep. So the next morning after, I wake up in the morning, first thing, we get ready to go to castings. I was very tired. I don't think I got very much sleep. Didn't even have time to have breakfast. I didn't have food yet. I just hopped into a van to go to casting. So meeting my roommates. This was, the next morning, we're all in a van going to castings. And so I started chatting with some of the girls, but you're just kind of in a van, you're driving all over the city to go to castings. How it works is you're on certain contracts. It's either 2 or 3 months at a time, depending on the girl, where she's from, if she's worked in Istanbul before, what her modeling agency negotiated. So for me, it was 3 months, but when you're meeting your roommates within the house, everyone's kind of rotating in and out, right? So you get to know your roommates, and then maybe their contract is up, and it's so sad because they're gonna go home, or they can extend their contract, or they're just going to the next country. So I had roommates from Greece, Norway, Denmark, Serbia, I think Italy, Russia. So all kinds of girls from all over the US, different ages. And the amazing thing was, though, here in Istanbul, is most of them did speak pretty great English. So we were able to speak to each other, communicate, and we actually had quite a bit of fun going to castings, which I'll get into later. But I met a lot of girls. A lot of them were very young, so I was 26. Some of them were maybe, here and there would have been in their 20s, but a lot of them were like 19, 18, 16, 15. Some of them were very, very young. So I felt like, obviously the oldest, mature one, but it was great meeting all the girls. I got along with everybody. We all had a fantastic time, but this leads me to castings. So castings, we would go to castings all over the town. So if some of you guys were following me and you were following my Instagram and my Facebook at the time, when I was posting all of this was about 2013, you saw that I would post castings, but I would also post just being in the van bored all the time. And a lot of you were asking me questions like, why are you always posting that you're bored? Because, you know, most people thought I was just living it up, like out there going and seeing and traveling and like seeing the touristy things and had all this free time. No, you're in castings all day, every day. Waiting, what's new? So the whiteboard that I was talking about, every morning, usually most of the girls, if they didn't have any jobs booked, we'd all be going to casting. So the whiteboard would say 7 a.m. castings for da 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 da. You go in your lineup to be judged on your looks and your appearance if they want to book you for the job. So we would go all over Istanbul. It was really cool to actually see the city this way, but most of us girls, we would be chatting, or we'd have our headphones in, or we would be just working on something. So that's what we were saying, as we're bored all the time. And when you get to the castings, there are several modeling agencies and their girls or guys at these castings. So we would pull up and you'd tend to see the same agencies at different locations. So you'd pull up and maybe there's like 4 other modeling vans there. And so sometimes I would get to know some of the people from the other agencies. There was a guy that I met who was an American. So of course I was like, oh, hey. And we'd see each other around at all these castings. You are waiting for sometimes hours. A lot of times we're just sitting around playing on our phones all day until we go into the castings for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then it's off to the next casting. So our days were filled with that. And then when we get home, so I'll speak of the day I arrived. We get home and I still, you know, like we would have little breaks and we'd go to gas stations and we'd be able to get some food and some snacks throughout the day. But I still had no food, and I had to get to know one of the girls and ask them like, hey, how do you guys get food? What do you do? You know, like I hadn't done this before. And literally they were super nice and showed me down the street where the market was. So this is my favorite part of modeling abroad, to be honest, was not just doing the touristy thing, because again, we did it, but we didn't have much time to do that. We were living like locals. So I was walking through the streets, seeing the locals, kind of seeing how they lived, experiencing the culture, and not just from a hotel, right? And doing just the touristy things. So that was my absolute favorite. So I'd walk to the store and there's this little bitty mart at the bottom of the hill, and I bought things that I wanted and needed. And finally I could have a meal. This is at the end of the day, I don't even know, 7-8 p.m. at night sometimes. So had my meal and I was happy. Woo-hoo! So that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I get so excited and inspired when I talk about this, my past life. I've really only shared intimate details about this with some close family and friends. You know, you guys that were following me for years, you would see it on my Instagram maybe, but never really knew the ins and outs, and to hear about it and to hear about these adventures. So I get super excited and really inspired to share this with you guys. Stay tuned for some of my next videos on Istanbul in the future, as well as Beijing, the next country, but I'll deep dive even more into Istanbul. And let me know in the comments if there is something specific that you're thinking about that you want me to talk about Istanbul. If you found this video helpful or you learned something new, just hit the like button below. This will really help my brand new channel on this video to gain some traction to show to other people like you. And now that you know that that's how it works, as you're watching some of your other favorite YouTubers, make sure to always give their video a like, because that really helps them out a lot with the algorithm and to get seen by more people like yourself. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.